All right, so an official welcome, and we had a little bit of a slow start, so I apologize for that, but here we are now. And again, as I mentioned before, a lot of people said they were going to be here. I don't know if they're popping in. Some people are going to be watching the replay, so there may be a changing cast of characters in here, which is also why, as Paul said before, if you keep it on speaker view, depending on your distractibility, that you might prefer that because you won't see all the pictures coming in and out. So thank you so much for being here. My name is Holly Hawkins Marwood, and this is our evening webinar called Demystifying the Akashic Records. And this is something I really, really love to do because, first of all, the Akashic Records are really near and dear to my heart. I'm extremely passionate about the Akashic Records and it as a tool and a resource for us to really get that acceleration that we're truly craving, desiring in our life to live a better life and not keep waiting. I think it's just an incomparable resource, which you'll hear about. Excuse me. And the reason I like to demystify it is because, quite frankly, there are a lot of outdated ideas about what it is and what it's not. There are also a lot of ideas that are holding some of the truth, but not all of it. There's a lot more available, and there's a lot more going on in the Akashic Records than some people believe. The truth is, it's a profound dimension for healing and personal growth, and not just information collecting. And again, we're going to talk about that. So I'm really excited to just introduce you to the idea of the Akashic Records and really how easy it is to access and work with for everyone. But before I go into that, I just want to introduce myself. I mean, everyone probably just saw Paul, my husband.
I'm just on the side. Yeah.
And Paul's taking care of the technology piece, as you've already gotten that idea this evening. And together we have a business called Soul Genesis. And one significant aspect of our business are the Akashic Records. And I am an advanced certified Akashic Records reader and instructor. So I've done a lot of work in training and how to teach other people how to easily access their Akashic Records. And a significant part of my everyday practice is doing Akashic Record readings for people for all over the world. I really believe that this is one of the most profound tools that we have at our disposal now. And the reason is because the Akashic Record is the record of your soul. And if it's the record of your soul and your soul brought you here, what better place to get the information that you desire, right? You can go out and find it in all kinds of ways. And sometimes we do need other people to help us access this information. But no matter whether you have somebody read for you or whether you learn to read for yourself, the truth is your soul knows what it's up to about why were you born into your family, your place, your sense of purpose and mission in life. Your soul knows the reason for that in the entire journey of all your lifetimes. So the way I look at it is, let's go to the source and find out why. And that's what the Akashic Records are. And so tonight, as I said, we're going to really focus on demystifying some of these ideas and really kind of updating everyone so you really know what's available. Because quite frankly, some of these outmoded ideas create limitations. And if you think, oh, well, it's only about this, there's so much more that it has to offer. And that's what I want to share with you this evening. What we're going to be doing throughout the evening, too, after I share some of these ways that you can work in it and demystify some of the Akashic Records to make it feel accessible and possible for each one of you, I want to also share that I am going to be taking you on a guided experience, not just in the Akashic Records at large, but in yours, which is really fun. So all of you tonight, if you choose to, are going to have an opportunity to open your Akashic Records. And we're going to do it as a group, and I'm going to guide you through it. But in order for you to open up your Akashic Records, I know I mentioned this before the call started, but not everyone was there. What I want, if you need to be clear on what your current legal name is. So if anyone's confused, you have a little while to think about it, or run to your tax files and look it up, but your current legal name. If it's a name other than that, you're not going to get in. If it's somebody else's name, you're not going to get in. Okay? So your name and currently. I'm making kind of a big deal about it, but I tend to get a lot of questions about it. And if you're unsure, like if you have a question about what your current legal name is or an aspect of it, number one, we'll get to that point in a little while. And number two, you can always type your question into the chat and we will get to it. I won't ignore it. We'll get to it soon. Okay? So, and at any time, if you have a question, if you feel like you don't want to interrupt, you can type it into the chat as well. So that's a great place to put it. So let's talk about what the Akashic Records are. If we're going to demystify them, we should have a good, solid understanding about what they are before we demystify some of the misconceptions around it. So as I already mentioned, the Akashic Record is the record of your soul throughout all of its lifetimes. So it does presuppose the idea of past lives and future lives if we need them, right? So the idea is that way, way back in the day, I don't know how many days ago, a long time ago, your soul separated from source. And it's been on a journey to discover itself again, and that's one way to say it. But the soul comes into these incarnated experiences, and right now we'd call them past lives, but there's future lives and there's our current life. But it has these experiences, and the motivation of all of these lifetimes is for us to discover our light. And so as we journey along and we have these experiences, a record is created of all of the experiences. So let's deconstruct this even more, because it's called the Akashic Record, but let's look at the word Akasha. The word is a Sanskrit word, and it means primordial substance. So primordial substance, if you look it up in the dictionary, means that out of which everything else is created. So it's a very, very foundational energy is what the Akasha is. And it is a highly refined, very sensitive energy field. And it's so sensitive that anything that happens in or on it gets recorded and saved. It's stored. So your soul, throughout all of its experiences, has a record of, as what, one term is, every thought, word, and deed that's ever happened. So by now, it's probably an incredibly vast amount of information. And the reality is, from where you sit right now, you do not need to know everything that's in there. And because you've had lifetimes that could have been nothing significant happening, you just lived your life and you transitioned, and then eventually you came back into another life. It's okay. When we work in the Akashic Records now, from our point of view now, the only other lifetimes that we're really concerned about are the ones that have an impact in this lifetime and are awakening in this lifetime. So we don't go looky-loo at everything. We don't care about everything. All we really care about is what matters to us in this lifetime in terms of us healing, releasing, understanding, and living our light to the best way we can. So the wonderful thing about the Akashic Records right now is that we've broken through to the next level, where literally everyone who has an interest can access their Akashic Records. And this wasn't always true historically. Back in the day, the Akashic Records, which, by the way, have a lot of different names. A lot of different names. You know, it's referred to as God's Book of Remembrance or the Book of Life. I mean, there are a lot of terminology for this idea that all that's happened has been recorded somewhere. When Paul and I were most recently in Japan, Yukio, I don't know if you know what this is. It's a leaf that Buddha writes on. Do you know what that is? So if you know what that leaf is, and you know how to spell it, because I don't even know what it is, you could type it in for all of us. But it's really cool, because when Paul and I were just in Japan, and somebody said, oh, that's like Buddha's leaf of something or other, that everything's written on it. I thought that's so cool, because I had never heard about that one before. So a lot of cultures, a lot of religions have this idea that there's this big repository of information that's God's information, basically, but it's our soul's history. And so back in the day, the only people who even knew about it or were able to access it were what we would call the spiritually elite. They could have been the priests, the keepers of the knowledge. And if we had an ordinary human life, maybe we were a farmer for the king or something like that, we wouldn't have even accessed it. We wouldn't have thought about it. We probably wouldn't have even known about it. So, and that was the history. And then over the last 100 or so years, we've really broken through to the idea that the everyday person, if they're interested, has the ability to access the Akashic Records. And a lot of people say, well, I don't think I can. Well, the reality is you have a soul. It has a history. From my point of view, of course, you have every single right in the world to access that record. And everyone can. You do. This is one of the things I'd like to demystify right now. Here's one of them, is people come to me all the time and they say, but I'm not psychic. I'm not spiritually gifted. I don't know all my clairs, like clairaudience, clairvoyance, and other people can do this, and I don't work with energy. It literally does not matter, because what we're doing when we're accessing the Akashic Records is we're moving from the state of our everyday, ordinary human consciousness and our human awareness, right? It's what helps us get up and make breakfast and go to work and do our job and raise our families and walk our dogs and plant our gardens. That's our everyday, ordinary human consciousness. And so we're still sitting in the Akashic field no matter what we do. Because no matter what we do, we're creating our Akashic Record. You're all creating your Akashic Record. We're creating it together right now. Where on May 17th in this particular year, we all met now and talked about the Akashic Records. This is a thing. No matter what we do, our Akashic Record is always being created. But what we do by accessing the Akashic Records, we're intentionally going into that higher level dimension of awareness that has your soul's perspective instead of your human perspective. All right. So does that make sense so far? You know, that's where kind of the goodies are. Like, okay, I get what's going on here in my 3D life, but let me see what my soul has to say about it. You know, why am I drawn to doing these things? Why did I get dropped into this family? Why am I not doing these things? And why are these other things so easy for me? And that's why we go into the Akashic Records, is to get that perspective. Okay? So what's wonderful about working in the Akashic Records, you know, I just have to tell you, this is so Holly. I have all my notes and they're numbered. Do you know that I cannot follow them for anything? Because I want to talk to you about something that's out of order right now, and I'm going to. I crack myself up that way. I don't always crack up Paul, because he often has PowerPoints and then it doesn't stick. Jessica, or is that the kind of person you are too?
Oh no!
It's all going to get covered though, whether it's number 1 or number 6. Okay. So here's another thing that I like to demystify about the Akashic Records. A lot of people believe, let me just open up my Akashic Records, and number one, I just want to know what my past lives are. And usually, okay, so it's okay to be curious about that, and it can be interesting. But when we go to into the Akashic Records, what a lot of people don't understand, it's a profound dimension of healing and alignment to your soul level truth. And so the truth is, just finding out what your past lives were in and of itself is not going to transform you. It's not going to. I often make a joke, you know, and because I literally did have somebody say to me, just tell me what my last 5 lives were. And I said, why? What do you think is happening in your last 5 lives? I'm curious. And they said, because I'm dealing with some things in my life, so I just decided that it probably started happening in my last 5 lives. And I said, okay, what if it started happening 6 lives ago? Or 10? We've missed it if we only look at the last, most recent 5, right? And then I also have said in a different conversation with somebody who asked me a similar question, and this is playful, this isn't meant to be antagonistic at all. What if I told you your last 5 lives were you were a tinker, a tailor, a soldier, a sailor, and a spy? And just in case people, not everyone knows that's from nursery rhymes as a kid. Okay, so the truth is, if you know that now, you have some information, don't you? Okay, I know my last 5 lifetimes I was a tinker, a tailor, a soldier, a sailor, and a spy. But I want to ask you this, would that have changed your life? Would you be living a better life because you had that knowledge and information? Most likely not. And it would not have created a big change in how you feel about yourself and how you approach your life and how on purpose you might feel in your life. So what we do in the Akashic Records is we go in and we always ask our questions about who we are right now. What's up right now? And it can be really mundane. Like, I don't even know how to exercise regularly, and I really need to get a handle on that. Really regular stuff. But it can also be very lofty, very esoteric, because the Akashic Records is about all of it. But we use ourself in this lifetime as the center point. And we ask questions about what we want to know about our life now. And then we allow our team that's in the Akashic Records, and I'll talk about them in a little bit, to bring forward the right information for us in this moment from the Akashic Records. So it might go to past lives. It might go to ancestral influences. We have a lot of influences from our ancestors. They believed all kinds of things. And we believe a lot of things, and we have experience related to their decisions. So it may not be past life, it may be ancestral. And the truth is that the response to whatever question we might have may only sit in this lifetime. And we also have this beautiful aspect of being able to look at future possibility, which again, I'm going to talk more about that, because the truth is, the future is not set in stone. Much as we might like it, the future isn't set in stone. So when I'm going to go back to what I was mentioning here, is when we talk about past lives, we only want to look at the ones that have any kind of impact on us now. And we're going to trust our masters, teachers, and loved ones to bring us only those lifetimes. Because if there are other lifetimes that aren't relevant to us right now, we can just let those be. We don't need to address them. At some other point in time, we may be dealing with something different, and other past lives will come up because they're relevant to where we are now and who we are in this moment in time. So this is what I love about it, is it really when we understand this, that we're not just looking at past lives, we're going to the ones that are the most impactful to us now, and also the one where we can have the greatest growth and transformation through. Because a really beautiful aspect of the Akashic Records, another thing I'm going to demystify is, and I touched on this already, here's the truth of it. We don't need more information. Most of the time, we feel like information is going to heal us. If I just understood this one piece of information, then I'm going to feel comfortable. Or then I'm going to be able to forgive them. Or I'll be able to move on from these terrible things that happened in my childhood, whatever it might be. And we think what we're missing generally is a piece of information. That information comes in, it slots into the right spot, and then we feel complete. But the information itself honestly doesn't heal. And I'm sure all of you are very well aware of this. The information doesn't heal. Energy heals. And so when we're in the Akashic Records, we're in the vibration of our soul, and we're going to get aligned with the truth. And us lining up with that creates an energetic shift. So one of the terms that we always say in the Akashic Records, energy first, information second. So the yummy, juicy part of this is we just want to go where the energy needs us to be. And sure, we find out about past lives. We find out about things that are happening now. We find out information about what happens with our ancestors, but at the highest order level. It's not the information that transformed us, it's the energy. And the energy does get delivered through the information, but it's also delivered literally just by us being in the Akashic Records and understanding. The energy shifts because we see with compassion and love maybe how courageous we were, or how we overcome incredible odds, or how we loved so passionately when we see who we really were in these situations, whether past or seeing what our ancestors were up to. Okay? So, all right. Since I've gone off my list, I have to go back. All right. Here's another thing about the Akashic Records. It's not predictive, which some of us love and some of us hate. Depending on the types of readings you may have had, in not Akashic Record readings, but other readings, we like to go and we like to ask, like, so when's this going to happen? Is he going to ask me to marry him? Am I going to get the job? We want to know what's going to happen and why and when. And the truth is, in the Akashic Records, it does not predict the future. And the reason for this is because the future isn't set. And the reason the future isn't set is because we have this beautiful thing here in this dimension called free will. And free will means we always have an option to make another choice. And there are times in our life where we say, I don't have free will. And it may be that we're looking at it and we don't feel like we have choice in that moment, but we do have free will to change. And the example I often give around this is, ever since I was a child, I could say I was on a spiritual path. I'm not going to go through the laundry list of things that I've done and experiences I've had, but I can go back to being a child, 10 or 11, when I took myself to church in a non-church going family. I took myself to church, and no one in my family did that at that time. I can say starting around 10 or 11, I felt I needed to go to church, and it's morphed a lot since then, but I can see that trajectory. So it would be highly likely for me, at almost 50 years later from that's what I'm going to probably continue to do that, right? Because I spent a lot of decades doing my own version of that journey. But in the space of free will, if I wanted to, I could throw it all in, give it all up, and decide to go drive trucks across country and just forget all of it. Couldn't I? I mean, I could. Now, it's highly unlikely I'm going to do that, right? It doesn't really follow from who I am and what that energetic thrust of my life has been. But I do have the free will if I wanted to do it. Probably wouldn't make me happy, probably wouldn't be satisfying on a whole lot of levels for a whole lot of reasons, but I could do it. And that's what free will is. And this is why we can look at future potential in the Akashic Records, and it's really fun to do that. It's so much fun to see future potential, especially when you connect with your future potential and be able to interact with them, which is possible, and gain information from that future potential. But the word there that's really important is potential or possibility. And what it is, again, is based on what direction am I going? And based on, if I keep going the way I'm going, this is very likely where you're going to end up. But if I go on my records today, when I'm on this trajectory and I ask questions in it and I get a future possibility, but tomorrow I do become a truck driver, and I say, but that didn't happen, it didn't mean that was wrong. It just meant I made some different choices. So now I have a new future potential. So one of the things that's unsettling about this is we kind of want to know what's coming up. So we do have an opportunity, again, to ask future potential questions, knowing that we have some freedoms in there. We have freedoms about making like a huge pivot, like I'm talking about, to become a cross-country truck driver. But it could also be our path, instead of being very straight and narrow, could meander. And that's okay too, but we'll still get there. And that's okay, because nobody says you have to get there fast and furious. You can take as long as you want, really, because you're going to get there in the end anyway. When the questions about future come up and we really want like a solid answer, there's usually some questions that sit underneath that. And the questions that tend to sit underneath that are questions like, am I really lovable? Is anyone ever really going to love me? Or will I ever feel satisfied? Or am I worthy? There are questions that go deeper that sometimes those predictive questions are looking to answer. So we can still get some satisfying answers, but it's not going to predict the future. And part of this goes into also, like when we ask questions in the Akashic Records, I'll talk about that now. The record readings are driven by your questions. And questions that aren't so great in the Akashic Records are yes and no questions. Should I do this? Should I do that? Yes, no. The reality is, again, you've got free will operating here. So your masters, teachers, and loved ones will never say, you must do this. You may not do that. But you ask the questions and you kind of get a sense and a feel. They kind of guide you, but they will never dictate anything for you. Again, free will. You get to decide your pathway there, and they'll help guide you when you ask. And so really, I want to talk about questions related to questions, which is fun also, is that a lot of times we're afraid to ask questions a little bit, because what happens is we think, if I ask a question, I'm going to create a limitation. And so sometimes people come into the Akashic Records and say, just tell me what I need to know. But our soul's journey includes our life journey, which includes our active engagement with it. And so the way I like to describe this, which is funny, and so you'll all understand it really well when I give you this example, If we think of the Akashic Records, a lot of times it's referred to as a database or a library. So we can imagine a library, right? It's filled with books, with all kinds of information, from technical books down to children's books to fiction, nonfiction, all kinds of stuff. Encyclopedias, maps, everything. So if I just walked to the door of the library, opened the door, stood in the doorway and said, "Can somebody please tell me what I need to know right now?" Then what would happen is, first of all, the librarian would probably come over and say, "Shh, quiet zone." And aside from that, what can I help you with? Right? And so then you would, if you just said, "But I need to know something, tell me what I need to know," you're not going to have a very good experience there, right? Because what's going to happen? You're just going to sit and wait until you're clear. But if you say, "You know what?" to the librarian says, "What can I help you with?" You could say, "I'm really looking at creating Elizabethan costumes for a play I'm working on." "Oh, got it. Now what can happen?" You asked a very specific question about what your current needs are. And now what can happen? The librarian can take you to that section on Elizabethan history, costume design, maybe some sewing books, because your question got specific. You got the exact information that you needed, and you could walk out satisfied. But when it's super general, I don't know, you could end up in the kids section looking at picture books. And then you're not going to be satisfied because it's not germane to what you need right now. So when we go into the Akashic Records, we love to ask questions about what's up. What are you struggling with? What patterns do you feel like you'd like to release? A lot of us have patterns. Like, no matter how many times I've tried this, it keeps coming back. The Akashic Records is a great place for that, because sometimes our patterns didn't originate in our lifetime. They could have originated in another lifetime. So you could be trying to crack the nut with everything you know right here. And if you understand where and when it began through your Akashic Records, that resolves the energy for you. So you move through creating a new pattern more easily because you don't have the old pattern from some other lifetime. You also could have the pattern, like I said before, from your ancestors. Listen, our ancestors did some really great things, usually like survival stuff, and it helped them survive. It was amazing. All these things that we may not like so much about ourselves right now, they always started for a very good reason. They make sense at the point of their inception. So if we go back to wherever they began with our ancestors or in our past lives, then understanding it from that point of view, where we see the beauty, the grace, the love, the persistence, the courage, whatever it was, those qualities that you had at that time, and help resolve it at that level, then energetically it shifts your pattern, which is so great. And the other thing I like to demystify also about the Akashic Records is this, that a lot of times what we do in this healing journey, this ascension journey, where we're trying to right all of our wrongs and feel comfortable with ourselves and all these things, and finally not feel broken. The reality is the Akashic Records can help us understand that. But what they can also do, you can go into the Akashic Records and ask if there are any other lifetimes, for example, where you already mastered this thing that you're challenged with right now, which I think is so beautiful, because we can shift our energy pattern right now by fixing the problems, but we can also do it by connecting where we really had things together. We really already learned this lesson, and we want to go back and get information from those lifetimes. So it's not always that, oh my gosh, I'm so broken, I have to fix this. Oh man, this is another thing I'm broken about, I have to fix this. That we have an opportunity to really go into positive aspects of the Akashic Records and allow that energy to work with us and heal us, and we get more aligned with that. Another thing that I like to demystify about the Akashic Records is I've had people say, can't you just go in and erase my record? Or I just want to change it. I want to pretend like it never existed, so that therefore then I will be changed if you can go in and erase it. Now, I don't know if there are people out there who actually say they can do that, but we can't. So, but it's not a bad thing, because the truth is these things happened. They happened. The key is not as much what happened, but how we felt about it. And the how we felt about it is the energy that we've carried forward. So, we could say that we were a slave who got tortured and abused, and we think erasing the story erases the energetic signature. But what happens as we work in the Akashic Records, whether it's past life or current life, the things happened. But we have an opportunity to reframe them and energetically shift them so they become stories of things that happened to us, but they don't have the hook, or they're not holding us back. So it's really a beautiful thing to do, because we're not going to erase it. I'm sorry. We're not going to. There's no whiteout for the Akashic Records, but there is a way to energetically shift what we've carried forward and not have it be something that feels like a limitation in this lifetime. Another aspect of the Akashic Records, I'm giving you so much here tonight. So if anyone has a question, please pop it into the chat window. I'll take a break after this next thing that I'm going to say. One of the things about working in the Akashic Records, which I am so crazy about, and maybe many of you can relate to this, is our healing journey tends to be about, as I just mentioned before, what's broken, I've got to fix it. And if I think it's broken and I've got to fix it and I'm not fixing it, I must be blocked. So it's very common to think that we have to go look for the block, find it, and remove it. And in the Akashic Records, which I love, is so beautiful, is we actually never go look for the block. We look for the light. The light is what transforms, and the light is there. Even in challenging circumstances, the light is always discoverable, always. So we don't go look for the block and fix it. We look for the light, we discover it, and that's how we transform. So it's a very positive, loving, energetic field. The field of the Akasha literally is unconditional love. And what comes along with unconditional love is total freedom from judgment. And so we feel free, we're more who we are, and we feel that and we vibrate that while we're in there. It can feel like such a relief to get into our Akashic Records, especially after you've been in there a while and you get comfortable with it, just like any new environment. You get comfortable in there and you go in there and go, thank you. Because generally speaking, we're the hardest on ourselves, aren't we? We're so much harder on ourselves than anyone else is usually. And so when we're in there and we're just bathed in this field of unconditional love, the judgment gets suspended. The judgment gets lifted and released. And we feel it. And then there's a sense of acceptance and understanding that comes with that. And not from a false place, but from a place that really is authentic relative to your soul. So I'm going to just take a break because I know I've been saying a lot of things. And I just wanted to open up the floor, if you will, for anyone, if you have any questions or any comments or any thoughts, because I want to answer them. So you can unmute yourself because there are not many of us here. You can just unmute yourself and just start talking. You can raise your hand or you can type a question in.
Yeah, or you can wave and we'll unmute you.
Yeah, if you're not sure. No questions? How does this differ from past life readings? It's a great question, Jessica. Thank you. Honestly, I've never had a past life reading. So and Yukio, I'll get to your question in a second. So I can't speak to it from that point of view, from past life readings. But I can tell you what I've understood from other people. So if any of you have any better information on that, please jump in and share. My understanding from people who've had past life readings, they tend to be more about, this is who you were, this is what happened, this is who you were, this is what happened. So it's more of an informational reading. Now, I'm sure there are people who do past life readings, whether they call it that or not, who probably do tap into the Akasha. The difference is when you're working in the Akashic Records, not only are you do understand some of this is what happened and this is how you felt about it and this was the result of it, but because you are getting into this space of your Akasha, that information transforms and heals as well. So again, if anyone's had past life readings, let me know. That's just my understanding of it. I've never experienced one, partly because I never really did any diving into past lives until I was working in the Akashic Records, and it's been infinitely satisfying for me that I've never even thought to have a past life reading because of how incredible the Akashic Records has been for me. But again, I'll go back to what I said before is when I open up my records, I don't need to decide that, oh, this is a past life issue or this I know for sure is an ancestral concern. There are ways we can see that it's likely to be that, but I don't need to worry about any of that. I just go in, I ask my questions, and my master's teachers and loved ones deliver to me what I need. Maybe it's past lives. Maybe it's ancestors. Maybe we're only going to stay in this lifetime, and that happens a lot. And that's okay too. There's a lot of stuff that happened to us when we were really little. And so sometimes a lot of our healing and work in the Akashic Records can just work on some early childhood experiences. So Jessica, I hope that helps. And if not, you can just type in another question. And so Yukio said, would anyone access the Akashic Record unconsciously in daily life? Absolutely. Absolutely. We've all been there. Excuse me. People can access the Akashic Record. Excuse me. In dream time, in daydream time, people have accessed the Akashic Records through Reiki sessions, hypnosis, meditation, massage. I've had a lot of people in the courses I've taught who, when they first go into the Akashic Records, they say, wait a minute, I know this place. I've been there a lot. And so the truth is we pop in and out of there all the time. And it makes sense. And right now we're at this transition point where we really, to work in our records consciously, intentionally, and consistently, we still need some support, some structure, which is why we have something like a prayer, which I'll talk about in a few moments. As we move forward, we're not going to need the support anymore because we're going to know how to do it more naturally. But right now, we're just waking up to this. This method, as I talked about, not just what I'm going to talk about, the method that I use, there are a lot of prayers that are out there right now that give people access to the Akashic Records. By and large, this only started in the 80s. It's not that long ago. It's still really young. It's really new for the individual person to access their Akashic Records. It hasn't been around for a long time, meaning like everyday people like us. We're just everyday people. We live in the world. We're not the king's soothsayer or something like that. We're not the predictor of the emperor or something like that. We're not in those spiritually elite. We're just living our life as householders. And so the prayers right now in this transitional period really help us. It's going to go on for a while. Like, I don't expect to see the total release from prayers or support in terms of accessing our Akashic Records for a long time. And the truth is, people are waking up at all different levels. So there'll probably always be people who need some support, and then you get confident, and then you don't need it anymore because you can kind of feel the difference. So it's a great question. Absolutely, you can be there. And also, as I mentioned before, the truth is we can't be out of our Akashic Records. Like, I could say, let's go into the Akashic Records right now. We are intentionally going in there, but if we're creating it every moment of every day, then we're on some level always in there. So, but what we want is to really understand and access that information to have it change our life now, not just understand that we're creating it with everything that we do. That's an excellent question. So are there any other questions that we have here for tonight? All right, so would it be possible to do a group Akashic Record reading, like collective consciousness? You mean open up the Akashic Records of collective consciousness? Like of a tribe? Is that what you're saying? Wow, that's interesting. Such as reading Japanese Akashic. Oh, you mean like opening up the records of everyone in Japan? Oh, why Hiroshima? Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, I will answer this question to the degree that I understand it. Okay, so if I'm off base in understanding what you're asking, you can. So one of the things I haven't mentioned before is that, or so far this evening, is that the Akashic Records are permission-based. And so what that means is one must have permission to open the records of whatever it is. But in the case of, like, you could open up the records of Japan and see what you can understand about it that way. I don't know what you're going to get. It'd be interesting to find out. Nobody's asked me that question that way before, so I love that. And the reason Yukio could open up the records of Japan is because it's what they consider in the public domain. So public domain is like national parks, countries, cities. So if you're fascinated by something, you could. You could even, since Hiroshima is a specific area, you could even open up the records of Hiroshima. I'm guessing there's a bigger message there than just Hiroshima, just that city, right? But it'd be curious. I mean, it's always interesting to see what people find out. You can also access the Akashic Records of planet Earth. And so you could also, relative to that one event, you say, well, that's one event in one location. But the truth is that was a global event. So if you're curious about it, you could do that as well. So it's a great question. So thank you for asking that. Does that help? Okay, great. If you go in, I want to hear what happens, Yukio. So, all right. So let's talk about the permission thing also, because it leads into a couple other things I'm just going to talk about at a very high level. And again, this is another thing that I like to bring up about the Akashic Records, that it's so much bigger and more robust of a field of information than a lot of people know and understand. So most of us think about the Akashic Records relative to human beings. Like, I want to open up my records. I'm going to open up records for my clients, but the truth is, lots of things have Akashic Records, including your pets. So if you have a dog or a cat or a bird or lizards or whatever, you can open up their Akashic Records with their permission. People say, okay, how am I going to get permission? Just ask. Intuitively tune in. And if you get permission, or even if you think you get permission, you can try. If you don't get anything, please don't decide that you're not good at reading your cat's records. It could be that you wanted the cat to say yes, but they didn't really, because we all know how cats are. They're pretty aloof. We have two, so I can speak about cats. They're a little hard to read at times. I don't know. Are you happy or are you sad? Your face always looks the same. That's not entirely true. We actually kind of know when our cats look pretty happy, but they don't emote the way we do, right? So you can open up your pet's records, and people say, why do I want to do that? I don't know. Maybe they've got some weird behavior you don't understand. Especially, I don't know, our two cats, one came from the Humane Society. The other one was a street cat. He was wild, but not feral. They had histories before they came to us. Bodhi, one of them, he really doesn't like plastic grocery bags. He really freaks out them. Now, we've never done anything mean to him about grocery bags, but he really doesn't like them. So, it's that kind of thing. And you can ask about how you can support them better. Okay. So another thing that has Akashic Records is your home. Your home, whether you own it or not, if you're renting or if you're on the lease or if you're an owner, you can open up the Akashic Records of your home. Again, why do you want to do that? I don't know. Maybe you have that room. No matter what you do, it never feels right. You've rearranged the furniture, you've repainted, or you've done whatever, and it always feels a little bit weird. Talk to the house and find out. Now, if you own or rent with somebody else, so maybe husband and wife, or it's a collective, you must have 51% permission. So if it's two people, you and somebody else, you need to get permission from the other person. If it's a group of people, 5 people, you just need permission from 3, not all 5. Okay? And the same goes true for your business. So if you own your own business, your business has an Akashic record. Paul and I use the Akashic Records of our business to help guide and make decisions with our business. And it's very cool. So again, I'm not going to go or their dishes 1/4 empty, right? Exactly. Jessica must have cats too. So, so I'm not going to go too deep into all that, but the idea is there's just so much more with the Akashic Records than just people. And it's really fun to utilize it for these other things. And whenever, say, for example, I went into my Akashic Records of our home, I can also go into my records about the home. And so then you get different points of view, and they dovetail. You're not going to get black and then white. It doesn't work that way. But you'll be able to knit the two together because it is your home. And you can really work together that way, which I think is really, really a lot of fun. And the truth also is there are some people who feel very confident and comfortable working in their home or their business or their pets' records even before their own. And that's fine. It's great. It's awesome. All right. So if I know a couple of you popped out and you popped back in again. Thanks for coming back in. If you have any questions, you can pop them into the chat or raise your hand. But what I'm going to do now is get us ready to do our Akashic Records experience. So I'm really excited to show this to you. I'm going to have Paul, my techno wizard, he's going to bring up the pathway prayer. Now, this is the prayer that came through Dr. Linda Howe. And she's the woman who I've studied extensively with to be certified as a reader and an instructor. I believe she's one of the preeminent people on the planet, really helping people connect with, in a very real way, the Akashic Records. So I'm very proud to work with her prayer that came through her via her Akashic Records, and I'll share with you some other information about that in a moment. Now, you don't typically see the prayer the way it's up on the screen right now in these colors. The reason I typed it out this way is because it just makes it easier for everyone to do if you haven't had the experience with it yet. If you notice, it's when we have the blue parts, you're going to read that out loud, and the orange parts you're going to read silently. So we toggle between out loud and silent, but I'm going to get to that in just a moment. So this pathway prayer to access the heart of the Akashic Records sits within a large body of the sacred prayer tradition, in that, as I mentioned before, these prayers started popping in through people starting in the 80s. And they gave us that personal access to the Akashic Records. And so this is tried and true. I use this all the time. I've had incredible success with it. I've had people say to me, why don't you just not use this? It's like, are you kidding? This works. I want to get in the Akashic Records. And the reality is that I've used this on probably thousands of readings for other people. So this works. And I'm going to tell you how it works if you read it exactly word for word. So sometimes some people get a little bothered by some of the words. I'm going to ask you to try and release that if you are. And we'll just step to this higher place. This is a pathway. And now that we have the prayer up, what I want to let you know is this prayer really is bridging us. We have our everyday, ordinary human consciousness, which is how you've been listening to this. And we want to bridge. We want to bridge that we can walk over energetically into the space of our soul level perspective. And this prayer does it. It does it in safety and in light and in truth. So I've had people say to me, well, how do I know I'm going to be energetically safe and everything else? That the different stanzas of this prayer set this up for success and for safety and for always working at the highest and best for everyone. Now, I want to talk a little bit finally about the masters, teachers, and loved ones. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but just so you know, because in the prayer, they're referred to. So it's like, well, who are they? Well, if I'm going to invoke these masters, teachers, and loved ones, who are they? So the masters and teachers and loved ones come forward as a group of energetic beings, just so you know that. You're not going to get a list of their names and their personalities. They're beyond personality. They're light beings. They don't need to have their individuated personalities like we do here. And what are they there for? They're there to inform your soul. So all eyes, in a sense, are on you and not on them. And so let's talk about the masters. The masters are light beings. They have never been embodied, ever. And they started journeying with you the moment you separated from Source. And they're going to be there through every experience, every incarnational deep dive you do until you get back to Source. They're there the whole journey. Your teachers. Teachers are there. They may have been embodied and they may have never been embodied. But no matter what, they're still energetic. They're non-physical. And again, they've lost their individuated personality in this role. And so what they're there for are specific soul lessons. So maybe in this lifetime, you're learning the soul lesson of, say, unconditional love, or self-acceptance, or patience. No matter what it is that you're working on, you have teachers that are specific to those lessons. As soon as you've mastered them, those teachers go away and you'll have new teachers for the new lessons. So the masters are always there. Teachers come and go. Whether, oh, I mastered that in 6 months or 60 lifetimes, it doesn't matter. As soon as you've mastered the lesson, they go and other ones come in. Loved ones are what it sounds like. They are in, they're non-physical. I mean, they're non-physical now. And you did know them one way or another in this lifetime. They could be a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a sibling, a child, could even be your dog that you had growing up. But somehow, it could have been a teacher you had in school. Somehow, when they crossed over, they said, I'm going to guide them. So you have known your loved ones. Again, they come together as a group, but they're the ones, when you open into the Akashic Records, they're interfacing and bringing through exactly the right information that you need relative to your questions. So that's kind of a really quick explanation of who they are, just so you know. Now, the Lords of the Records, you'll hear about them too. The Lords of the Records don't interact with us. They're light beings as well, but what they do is they take care of the sanctity of the Akashic field. They're taking care of the Akashic Records. They're present, if you will, but the masters, teachers, and loved ones interact at that level. We don't interact directly with them. And I just wanted to let you know all those names of those players, if you will, because you'll read about them in the prayer. So when we're going into this Akashic Records experience, if you'll notice from the prayer that's up right now, there's an opening part and a closing part to the prayer. We're going to open the records together, and then I'm guiding you in this experience. And just so if anyone's worried about this, you're not going to be asking questions specifically tonight. I'm just guiding you through this experience for you to break into the space and get a feel for it. If you're in your records, you definitely get impacted by them in a good way, even if you haven't asked any questions. But this is the idea of today, is guiding you in here, giving you a sense of it in our group experience. When we're done, we'll close the records by reading the closing prayer. All right. Now, so I want you to notice, if you look at the third stanza down, which is where Paul's pointing the little arrow there, it says, help me to know myself in the light of the Akashic Records. So this is where, help me to know. But then in the next two stanzas that are orange down below, if you notice in parentheses, first of all, the words are exactly the same in each three of those, except in the orange ones, in parentheses, it says your current legal name. So you would silently say this. I'm going to say it out loud just so you hear, but you would silently say to yourself, help me to know. And then in my case, I would say Holly Hawkins Marwood in the light of the Akashic Records, to see Holly Hawkins Marwood through the eyes of the Lords of the Records. And you read it like that, but silently to yourself. And then when you've done all of that, and we're going to do this together, you say the records are now open. Now, what's interesting is we all have different length names, and we don't know how long everyone's name is. I've had people in my classes who have like 5 names. It takes them a while to open up their records, and some people just have 2. So you're not going to hear this because all of the microphones won't be open. But what happens is we say the records are now open. The records are now open. It just happens, sort of ping pongs around. So if I haven't started the guided piece of it, it's not that I've checked out and I'm ignoring you. I'm just giving enough time for everyone to get through the entire prayer, and then I'll begin guiding you. So if you have a really short name, or you're a fast reader and you're done soon, just close your eyes and sit and feel what you feel. Okay? So we're going to go in. But before we do, does anyone have any questions? Would you like anything to be clarified with regard to the prayer? And you can either raise your hand or wave your hands or type something into the chat box, whichever works for you. Okay, I'm not seeing anything come up, so I'm going to just assume everyone feels comfortable, and I'm not seeing anyone wave their hands at me. So I'm assuming that you're feeling good. So take a look at the prayer then. And the reason I'm looking off to the side is just because that's where the prayer is. You know, the prayer, you never need to memorize it. It is changing your level of consciousness and awareness. So it's a really squirrely thing. Don't try and memorize it. If you continue to play with this, then just always just read the prayer. You know you're going to do it accurately, and reading it accurately is more important than memorizing it. All right. So let's begin now. And so we do acknowledge the forces of light, asking for guidance, direction, and courage to know the truth as it is revealed for our highest good and the highest good of everyone connected to us. O Holy Spirit of God, protect me from all forms of self-centeredness and direct my attention to the work at hand. Help me to know myself in the light of the Akashic Records, to see myself through the eyes of the Lords of the Records, and enable me to share the wisdom and compassion that the masters, teachers, and loved ones of me have for me. Now read it 2 times silently to yourself, inserting your full legal name. The records are now open. So closing your eyes down. The reason we close our eyes is because it really creates a barrier, if you will, between us and our physical world in terms of all the information that comes in through our eyes. So whether you're a visual person and you might see things, or you could even be kinesthetic, it just allows us to focus and concentrate on this field a little bit more. So closing your eyes down, and we're going to allow ourselves to arrive in the space that really is your sacred space. It's absolutely unique to you. You may feel like you see things behind your closed eyes, and you may not, and that's okay. We're just going to allow ourselves to acclimate to this environment of unconditional love. And so you can draw your awareness to this love, perhaps through your heart, or just open to feeling it. Some people feel a lightness within their physical body. They might feel emotional. Some people feel a weight lifted off their shoulders because that weight of judgment is suspended while you're in here. And as if you could turn your head in 360 degrees, take a look around and just open yourself up to whatever you might feel or experience on any level. You could see a landscape or a library or nothing. Please allow for whatever is there or not there and trust the space is holding you, regardless of what you perceive in this moment. And you're now open up to the place where you have access to the understanding that your soul has about who you are and why you are, what you came here to do, all those great things. We're going to open up our awareness now to the fact that in this space with you are your masters, teachers, and loved ones. Some of you may have already had a sense of them. And if you scan the space around you, front, behind, on either side, above or below, notice where you sense your masters, teachers, and loved ones. You could feel them behind you as if they're supporting you. You could feel completely surrounded by them, encircled. You could see them in front of you or sense them. You don't have to see anything. You could just sense them. Notice where they might be. And reach out, if you will, energetically with a greeting, if you will. They know you're there. But create that connection. These are those who have chosen to be your personal guides. They understand you. And if this is your first time in the Akashic Records, think of it as an initial meeting, just like an initial meeting with a friend. You don't know everything about them yet. You don't know the best ways to communicate with them yet. So you know that over time, you have a relationship that you can develop here, just as you would with somebody who becomes a very, very close friend. If you wish to, you can ask them in your mind if they have a very early suggestion on a great way for you to begin to develop that relationship with them. And allow anything to come forward. It may seem logical to you. It may seem like your own voice in your head. Anything you receive, please receive it as coming from them. Even if you feel like you're making it up. And the reason for this is you can't make up anything that's not already in your field. So trust anything that comes forward. It could be very simple, like a word or an image or a sense of a word or an image. It could be a story. And if it feels like nothing, please allow for that as well, because the energy still will have responded. And now, just for the fun of it, let's ask your masters, teachers, and loved ones for one word, just one word they would like to gift you with right now. And allow for whatever that word that comes from a space of love and understanding to be received by you, and trust that word. And see how that feels. The word has an energy and a vibration being delivered from these incredible beings guiding your soul that's perfect for you to resonate with right now. And so now we'll get ready to leave this experience. Knowing that if you are drawn to this, it's just a beginning. So if you can just take a nice breath in and open your eyes. And you can all look at the closing prayer. And we'll begin to read that together. Let's begin. I would like to thank the masters, teachers, and loved ones for their love and compassion. I would like to thank the lords of the Akashic Records for their point of view. And I would like to thank the Holy Spirit of Light for all knowledge and healing. The records are now closed. Amen. The records are now closed. Amen. The records are now closed. Amen. So take a nice breath in for yourself. If you want to just kind of move your body around, if you have something to drink, it's always a great way to ground yourself a little bit by taking a drink of water. It's really important to ground yourself. And clearly we weren't in the records for very long there, but just if you do work in your records, you want to just ground and be normal, everyday human when you get out of the records. So water, a snack, walk the dog, move the laundry, get back to work, whatever it is that that is regular, ordinary, and human, and that can be very grounding. So, does anyone have anything they'd like to share, whether it's their word or a question that they had come up from that experience? We'd love to hear. Just giving some time if anyone's typing anything in. And if people are typing something in, I'll just throw out a couple of ideas. When you went in there, could you feel that maybe you were in a little different place than you normally are? Or sometimes you can really sense love. I think one of my very early times in the Akashic Records, I just found myself crying, not out of sadness or anything, but just because I was just so overcome by the love. It was so pure. So Jessica said, clear visuals, but not making sense at this moment. But what a beautiful exploration. Thank you. You're welcome. And you know what, your comment is perfect. So thank you for that, Jessica, because the reality is that when we're in the records, sometimes we get it and it makes sense. And sometimes our mind doesn't quite get it right then, and it's okay. It could be that later on in the day or tomorrow or in a week from now, it all makes sense, because we can't go into the records without an energetic shift. So sometimes it takes, for a variety of reasons, a little bit of time, if you will, for us to realize the energy shift. But we don't go in there, especially when we start asking questions and we say, well, I didn't get anything, but you went in, you asked, something got rearranged, and just sometimes we have to be patient for it to oh, I got it. That makes sense. Did anyone get a word? I'd love to hear what your words were. I got trust, and which may sound like a cliche, but after they said trust, I got trust the unfolding. And it's interesting because there are a couple of things that I've got going on in my life that are bothering me a little bit. And I can't resolve them. You know, those things, they kind of drive you nuts. I want to resolve this. What's on the other side of this? And I knew that even though I wasn't asking about that, when I asked, what kind of word could I have? And when they said trust the unfolding, it's oh, okay. And it's kind of more to be revealed. It's not all there right now, but just trust it. And what I felt like when I felt those words was a bit okay. And really more than anything else, I felt oh, somebody understands. Somebody knows. And they're telling me to trust it. So I can relax a little bit. Don't have to be quite so vigilant with it. So Linda said presence. Oh, that's nice. Presence. And Jessica said, I did. Dry, persistent, or guiding. Great. And Yukio said, my word was no. Interesting. And so one of the key things I always say, especially in the classes I teach when people are sharing, it's, we have these experiences, and then I often say, how did that feel? Because just like I shared with you, when I got this trust in the unfolding, it's oh, I could feel almost like my shoulders drop a little bit, my breathing get a little bit more relaxed. So it's okay. So it was the energy, in a sense, that was delivered around the words that impacted our head. So thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. So if anyone is still typing, I'm just going to keep talking about a couple other things. And also, if you have any questions that are specifically around our little guided experience, that's great. If you have questions around what I talked about earlier, that's great too. So Jessica said, just in case any, oh, and Yukio said, wait, I didn't see something specific, but feel healing was done at my heart chakra. Wow, nice. Probably linked with my past experience around 25 years ago. That's lovely to just have that whole awareness that came up. And what I love about what Yukio is saying, sometimes it's that simple. Like, oh, and his mind may have said, oh, it's healing something from 25 years ago, but it could be that it wasn't just a mind thing. It was like, no, I know this is related to that. So that's lovely. Congratulations. And Jessica said it felt new but welcoming, which is great. And, you know, the thing with working in your Akashic Records is that you really are learning something new. And you really are developing a new relationship. You don't meet your new best friend and know everything about them and how to deal with them and how to talk with them and how to navigate their home the very first moment you meet them. Your relationship develops because you spend time and you hang out and you're around each other. And so really giving yourself the grace, if you will, of understanding that this could very likely be your first time as an everyday, ordinary human person accessing this high soul level dimension. Now, maybe you were some exalted priest in some other lifetime and you've done the Akashic Records, and that's great. I know I did Akashic Records. They weren't called that before I came to this lifetime, but I wasn't an ordinary person, if you will. I was one of those spiritual people who like never got married, was always kept cloistered away, and I was like advisors to people. This isn't like, I wasn't an ordinary person. So I know that this is my first lifetime being an everyday ordinary person and accessing this soul level dimension. So we have to give ourselves a lot of patience, and like, here we are proving to ourselves that we get to do this. It's our right to be there. And I believe it is. I believe it's our birthright. Like, how can anyone tell you you can't do this? Because it's your soul. It's more you than the you think is walking around on the planet every day, right? So of course we should be able to access this. Just keep playing with it. Open yourself to it. The more time you spend there, the more comfortable you get. I did want to share a couple of things here with you. So Dr. Linda Howe has written 3 books, and this one, I just always refer to it as the orange book, but it's called How to Read the Akashic Records. And her name is Howe. Oh, Yukio has it. Yay. And it's called How to Read the Akashic Records. And you know what's cool about it? It really is how to read the Akashic Records. It's not one of these books that sort of tells you everything, but that like pivotal 10% that you really need to make it happen. It literally is how to read the Akashic Records. So I do highly recommend this book. I teach 2 certification courses out of this book. One course is based on the first part of this book, where you learn about reading your own records and readings for other people. And you also learn about how to open the records and work in your home, business, pets, and things like that. The second half of this book is another course I teach, and it's all about how energy healing happens in the Akashic Records, how to explore past life and ancestral patterns in the Akashic Records. Highly recommend this book if you want to dive into the Akashic Records. Another book that Dr. Howe has written is called Healing Through the Akashic Records. I refer to this as the blue book for obvious reasons. And what's really great, I mean, this is incredible. Paul might want to jump in on this piece. This book is all about, and well, the subtitle says it all, using the power of your sacred wounds to discover your soul's perfection. The truth is, this book is all about personal healing, personal transformation. You look at your sacred wounds and you literally discover the light in them, so our wounds aren't holding us back anymore, because the truth is we've all been wounded. It just happens. We wish it didn't, but it does. But, you know, that often quoted saying, I think it's by Anais Nin, but, you know, the crack is where the light gets in. So we look at our cracks and we look at where the light is coming through the imperfections that we view that we have. I teach a whole course on this. Absolutely incredible. Did you want to jump in on this, Paul?
Well, I've many times learned and attended the 3 classes that Holly teaches with regards to the Akashic Records. And I'd have to say, hands down, that one is the most powerful. You know, I highly recommend it to everyone. It's a lot of work compared to the other 2, because you are in and out and in and out and in and out of your records, like literally for the full 2 days. So by the end of the Sunday, usually a Saturday and Sunday, you're pretty much toasted energetically, so to speak.
But you're seeing your light.
But you get a lot of aha moments and a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom from your soul. So, and huge healing. And you know, because as Yuki was sharing, as Yuki-san was sharing earlier about, you know, feeling some level of healing, as Linda says, you know, quite often you get knowledge from being in your records, but actually the biggest and most important piece is the energy, and the healing takes place with the energy, whether we understand it or not. So really amazing things happen on that class.
Yeah. And then I'm in training right now. And in June, I'll be certified to teach a course out of this most recent book by Dr. Howe called Discover Your Soul's Path through the Akashic Records. Again, another really powerful, you know, soul's path. I mean, this is what we're all curious about. Like, who am I? What am I here to do? So starting after mid-June-ish, I'll be certified to teach a course in this one as well. So, and these are all available on Amazon. Not too many languages at all other than English, but they are all readily available. And in each of the books, you're reading information, but she has Akashic Records experiences. So you can open your records and you can do these experiences and practice it with that. So I love that. And so it's a great resource for you. The other thing I wanted to share with you is actually out of this body of work, there's a major section in this book on self-abandonment. And that sounds kind of yucky, but the reality is that self-abandonment is something we've all done. We've all had uncomfortable experiences and we've abandoned ourselves. And as Dr. Howe says, self-abandonment, she calls it the king of all sacred wounds. Like the ultimate of all of our woundings is that we have abandoned ourselves. And in the last year and a half, I decided to attack, if you will, which is kind of an aggressive term, but I wanted to really forklift self-abandonment out of my life. I thought if it's really like the ultimate thing, then let's get that out. I don't want to deal with the superficial stuff. I want to get to some of these core things, and that's a lot of our core issues come where we abandon ourselves. So what I've done is I've created an online course that I'm going to be teaching starting in July called Healing Self-Abandonment. It's going to be 5 weeks, and it's just meeting once a week. And it's all about intentionally going in this loving space of the Akashic Records and looking at where you've abandoned yourself and getting back with yourself, healing that, and moving forward in a more holistic way. So just so you know, this is open to anybody. No prior experience in the Akashic Records needs to happen, because I'll do a complete introduction to the pathway prayer at the beginning of it. But in it, we're going to discuss what are not sacred wounds. What's self-abandonment? When did it happen? How did it happen? How it was the best thing we could have done in that moment, but how it's really become a hindrance now, and how we can really, again, in the space of the love of the Akasha, go in and heal it. It's not that hard to do. We just need a pathway to do it. So then we're going to spend some time working in the Akashic Records in these 5 weeks, really learning some steps to go after the places we've abandoned ourselves, and then also ways that you can keep from doing it again, and also even working on not abandoning yourself when you're not in your records, because you can do it every single day, even when you're making a decision about what you want to eat for breakfast. It's really cool. So I am offering this again starting in July as a 5-week online course. If people can't make the course live, it's not a big deal. We are going to record every single course. They're going to be archived on our website for 2 reasons. Number one, if you miss a class, it's still there for you. If you didn't miss a class, but you want to go watch it over again, it's there for you. And I'm really excited about doing this. I'm very, very passionate about, like, let's go to the core of some of these things. What I've discovered in really going after it is when you get down to self-abandonment and intentionally do it, some of all those other layers literally disappear. Like, I don't need to deal with those things anymore. I'm not dealing with the outer onion layers anymore. I've just gone here. And it's so sweet and so loving and so kind. It's not traumatizing to heal self-abandonment at all. So I love it. I'm very passionate about it, as you can hear. The course is going to be offered for $147 USD. Paul put the link in the window, the chat window. If you're on your phone and you can't see it somehow, you can always reach out to us and email us and we'll send you the link. So that I'm really excited about. You know, I want everyone to start healing their self-abandonment so we can get to be whole again. You know, some people who I've worked with self-abandonment with have said that, isn't this kind of like healing your inner child? And there is definitely an aspect of this that's very similar to inner child healing. Or some people will refer to this as like soul fragments. Again, I don't know about soul fragments, but you definitely feel like you're pulling these pieces together so you feel more whole and more complete. And the benefits of that is that you feel more clear about who you are and what you're here to do and how to execute it. And we get less distracted when we don't have all these pieces we've abandoned by the side of the road of our life.
Just let everyone know that the self-abandonment is all online, so people can do it all from wherever they are.
Yeah, I think I said that, but I'll say it again. Paul's reminding me to remind you that it is online, so you can take this course no matter where you are.
And it's all recorded, so they can't.
Yeah, I did mention that already. Thank you. I'm also teaching some in-person certification courses. I'm teaching 3 courses in Grass Valley. So we live in Northern California. So this summer I'm teaching 3 courses. I am teaching the 2 from the Orange Book and the 1 from the Blue Book. And they are all certification courses where you are certified by the Center for Akashic Studies, which is Linda Howe's organization, because I am one of her certified instructors. So all 3 of those will be in June, July, and August. And Paul has those classes just generally up on the screen right now. And I think he was going to link those in there. In Southern California, in specifically the city of Vista, which is in North San Diego County, I'm going to be teaching later on in the summer after I'm done with my certification. I'm going to be teaching the Soul's Path course and it'll be 1 weekend long in Vista, and that'll be in July. And then in Canada and Alberta in the fall, after we get back from Japan again, I'll be going up there and teaching this course in 2 different locations up there. These are all going to be on our website as soon as I'm talking about it, but I can't officially post anything because I'm not officially certified yet. That'll be coming up soon. And also, as a special gift to anyone on this call live, or all of you who registered and just didn't have the opportunity to show up live, we are offering a special offer for all of you if you want to have a one-on-one reading. Paul's a reader, I'm a reader, and they're 1 hour long. And there's a 25% discount for anyone who's participating in this if you want to experience a full reading for a full hour that's just you and your opportunity to ask questions. Paul put the link there. Is that? No, that's the other.
I'm just trying to do it now.
Okay. I'm talking faster than Paul can type right now. He's working hard on the side here to put these links up. But there's a link here, and he's going to also put the coupon code in there. Well, I think it goes into a box that says promo code, but you put what it says first time, all one word, FIRSTTIME, all in that little promo code, and it automatically drops it down by 25%. And so that's just a thank you for those of you who, thank you, Jessica, who have taken your time, whether it's live or on the recording, and you want to experience that. We'd like to gift you with that. And I think that's all of my notes. And I just want to, Jessica, I'm just catching up with anything. I'm obsessed with your guided self-love meditation you did in a webinar not that long ago. So this one really interests me. Oh, thank you. Yeah, the self-love one. Did you like it? Oh, great. Wonderful. Yeah, I love creating these little classes. And actually, speaking of working in the Akashic Records, I get ideas and guidance and kind of demands sometimes from my master teachers and lovely. So you need to be doing this. And so these courses I do, not obviously the certification courses that I'm teaching of Dr. House, this is her material, but the other things I do, they come out of and are developed in my Akashic Records. So it's really a fun resource. It's so incredible. There's so much there for us to work with and do. So if anyone has any additional questions, I don't want to leave you hanging for the evening. Do we have an online introduction course too? Oh, you mean to the Akashic Records? We probably will. Probably before we head over, we'll probably be doing an intro. Are we doing that? Do we know that? We don't know that yet. We'll keep you posted. But we've done it before, so hopefully we'll do that again. Thank you, Yukio, for your question. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your time. And I hope you've had a wonderful evening, just like we've had. We really appreciate you being here and diving into the Akasha. And hope you find it meaningful to use as a resource for yourself later on.
And just to let anyone know, if you haven't clicked on, or just when you finish this, and for the people that watch the replay, we'll send an email with all of the details to access the replay, and also the links and the details that I've just been busy typing in. So you'll get us a nice email, then you don't have to track anything. It's just all there.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, have a lovely evening. Happy Friday, or Saturday morning, and have a wonderful evening. And all the best to all of you.
Much love to you all. Bye for now.